Hello again, folks. Well, a couple of weeks ago, I talked about how we were on the upward trajectory to spring. And I mentioned it at a particularly cold and snowy afternoon. Well, we may still be on the upward trajectory, but it stalled a little bit today. we we awoke to another dusting of snow, and it is 30 degrees out there. And so, what a great time to come down here and play with some stamps. And on today's episode, I am going to explore a very special stock book that was given to me a little while ago from my dad. So, as you might have seen in a couple of recent episodes, I've been focusing on stamps from the Netherlands. And I have mentioned that I am, mostly Dutch, and so that's where that inspiration comes from. But it also came from the fact that my dad went to the Netherlands recently. It was the first time he had gone to our ancestral homeland, particularly the Friesland region of the Netherlands. And while he was there, bless his heart, he spent some time looking for a memento for me. And he found this stock book at a market or at an antique fair. And he was quite proud to bring it home to me. And I love it. I love the story behind it. I love the collection within it, and I've had it on my shelf, thinking that I would keep it intact and just it would be a memory for me of my dad's trip and of my dad. Well, my dad being who he is, and and me being who I am as his son, he is very curious about how he did in his little discovery, specifically how good are the stamps in here that he took such pains to bring back from Europe. And so he's been asking me, about what stamps I've found in here, and so I'm going to show you. And as I do, I'm going to talk about how I will, I guess you could say, process an album like this typically, or how I collect stamps for my own collection. Um, One of the things that's great about collecting stamps is that there are no right and wrong ways to do it. It is personal choice, and you can focus on things like topics, you can focus on countries, and then you can store them in any number of different ways. And on my Beginner's Guide to Collecting Stamps series, I have shown a few different ways you can store your stamps. And today I'm going to show you how I store mine. That is kind of a cool little set of four. And specifically, I'm talking about stamps that don't fall within the countries I focus on. And so when it comes to countries I focus on, I know the different stamps. I know which ones are fine and collectible and which ones might not be. But, there are a lot of countries in the world. And so, when my dad asks, what stamps did I find in here? Well, the truth of the matter is, I know a handful of these that are nice, but I also know how much I don't know. And in order to discover the ones that are, in order to be able to tell him how he did, I have to go through each of these sections, specifically the ones that I don't know well, and I have to get out my catalog, and I have to do research and learn about these different stamps. And so today, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you the collection, and I'm sure many of you will be able to see fine stamps right off the bat that, even I will miss, because I certainly don't know all the countries. And then I'm going to catalog them. I'm going to put a ball game on the on the TV, and I am going to go through each country, each of these different stockbook pages, and I am going to catalog them, and then I'm going to store the ones that are nice. I'm going to put the ones that are really nice that I find into my system, let's call it, and I will show you that at the end of the video. And so I will be able to both tell my father how he did, which I know he's very excited about, at the same time as I show you how I store stamps like these that aren't necessarily within my country focuses. I do know there are some very nice Spanish stamps right here. That one, for example, is in nice condition. I really do get a kick out of my dad going through an antique fair, and Lily Warden, I believe, is the name. Perhaps some of you or one of you might be able to help me with the pronunciation if I got that right. But he was there, and he was at an antique fair that he didn't see any stamps. And so he had to talk to people and ask them, do you have any stamp albums? And lo and behold, someone was like, I think I might somewhere. Why don't you come back in a little while? It's a nice section of Japanese stamps right there. I really love Japanese stamps. I think they're beautiful. And so he came back, and he had a couple to choose from. The guy had found a few, I believe, and he chose this one. And I think he chose pretty well. I don't know how much he paid for it. The handwriting looks to be a young man, if I had to guess. And so this is, I would imagine this was a young person's collection. And that being said, even in a young person's collection, you can certainly find stamps that are interesting. There's a nice one. And one of the things I'm always fascinated about by collecting worldwide stamps is how it's just, you never stop learning. You never stop figuring out which stamps are sought after in, say, Italian philately and which ones aren't. And then, of course, once you become a specialist, you learn the different variations of the different stamps. This one looks new. Perhaps a little stuck. I'm not going to pull that out. So this is a nice little collection. And I do see some that I know to be collectible, and I'm excited to learn more, and at the same time show you how I store and collect stamps that are outside of my country focuses. It's I should give a shout out right off the bat to another fellow YouTuber by the name of Smokey. So feel free to look him up. I saw him describing how he stores stamps, and it inspired me to adapt his process for a way that works for me, and I have been thrilled ever since. Yeah, I don't know much about Swedish stamps. I think they're beautiful, but I don't know much. And then there's one on the back that is just hanging out here. All right, so there you go. There is a stock album that my father found in the Netherlands and brought back to me. Thank you again. And now I am going to put a ball game on, and I'm going to go through each of these countries, learn an awful lot about the stamps, and then show you my system for storing my collection. And in a magic of technology, and here are the fine stamps I was able to pull out of the album. And the long and the short of it is, my dad did just fine. I am quite grateful to him. So the first step in the process when I go through an album like that is I take the stamps and put them into stock cards, and then I put their information on the top there. Once I go through these and show you what I found, I will demonstrate where I put them next so that you get a sense of my overall system. At some point down the road, I will do a full video on that system, but for now, I just wanted to give you a sense of how I collect stamps. So, as I go through these, the first thing I should mention is that catalog price is not what these stamps are worth. It's what a company, the best way to think of it is what a company would love to charge you for their stamps, and no one pays their prices. I tend to think about 10 to 15% of catalog value is what a stamp is worth in terms of cash. You'll notice that some do not have catalog information on them. That's because I need to do some further research like watermark checking and so on, and I did not have time today. So now that we've gotten to the Italian stamp section, let me tell you a story I heard at work the other day. I happened to hear a scientist talking about their greatest discovery. And they had been fortunate enough to be part of a team of scientists that had discovered the world's largest snake. It lived, 60 million years ago or whatever. And when I asked him how long it had taken him to realize that he had found something historic, he smiled and said, well, after all the work was done, right? After all the research, after the years in the lab, he had finally uh, figured out that he had found something truly unique and important. I got to thinking about that story as I went through this album. Like I shared originally, or at the beginning of this video, I'm not a specialist in all countries. I do not know stamps from Italy, for example, because I haven't spent much time learning them. And so when oh, and by the way, these were a nice little find, these Romanian semi-postals. Those were a nice little discovery. So when I got to the Italian section and I started doing some research on what was there, I discovered something that made me hoot and holla. If any of you all can provide some information on that stamp, I would appreciate it. That's a very nice find right there. Very good condition. Now, when I come to the end here, I'll do a total on the bottom of the screen for the amount of catalog value I was able to pull out of that stock book. And there is an asterisk. And the asterisk is because of this stamp right here that some of you all might have noticed when I originally went through it. Much like my scientist friend, it took me some research to figure out what I had here. So, with the caveat that I am not sure if this is new or if it's used. It certainly looks unused to me. The second caveat, I cannot vouch for whether or not this is real and authentic. Stamps of this magnitude are so often counterfeited that it's probably safe to assume it is, I guess, but or safer to assume it is. So I can't guarantee that it's unused. I can't guarantee that it's authentic. What I do know is that the catalog value and historic nature of this stamp warrants me figuring out if indeed it is real. So I'll be sending this off to an authentication service at some point because the catalog value on this stamp is over $9,000. Thanks, Dad. So, with that, I will show you how I store my very fine stamps and thus complete my Beginner's Guide to Collecting Stamps, Episode 4. All right, so now the stamps that I found and cataloged with a value up to about $50 or so, I am going to go ahead and put in my red box with a host of other stamps that I'm in the process of finding a final home for. So those are going to go there. And then I took the stamps with a catalog value of $50 or more, and I took my handy dandy card that I went to Kinko's and had made. And, you know, I added a YouTube link because why not? And this is the basis of my collecting. For the stamps that are high catalog value, I put in sleeves. I started off as a baseball card collector. I had a stamp album when I was a boy. I used it and I enjoyed it. And then I found baseball cards. So when I saw this, again on Smokey's YouTube channel, something like this, please feel free to check him out. I realized that I could combine stamps with the things I used as a baseball card collector. And that's what I did. So these are top loaders that you can find at Target and elsewhere. And I think they make for a fantastic presentation of your valuable stamps. When, traditionally you'd use a stock card, and I do use stock cards, for when I'm storing stamps that I've yet to put into my system. But for me, when you put them in a box, they just kind of live there. You don't really have access to them. And with these, I get to take these out and play with them and look at them and enjoy them whenever I want. And it's more accessible to me, at least, than a stock card. And if I ever do decide to sell these, I can easily ship them knowing that they're safe. So here are the finer stamps I found from the album. This one is the best one by far. It does have a little chunk missing. But I just love the presentation like this because I get to be able to see all of the information that I need. And I just think they're cool. And then this guy. So the final little tidbit to say on this beginner's guide to collecting stamps episode is do your research and continue learning and be skeptical because forgeries abound. Here's where I am with this stamp currently. What I believe this is I believe it is a Tuscany stamp, which is an imperf stamp in its issuing that somebody cut to make look like they had perfs, that it has perfs. And so therefore to try to fool somebody into believing that this is an Italian stamp, which has a catalog value of over $9,000. I don't believe it's genuine. I don't think those perfs are real. I think it was cut, and so I think this is a forgery. What I did then in this case was I put it into my little top loader, and then I put an asterisk, and on the back, I put the detailed information. So that way I get to keep it in my collection. I think it's cool. And this is my sense of this stamp as it is now. So I put my very fine stamps in top loaders, and they allow me to know that they are very secure, and I can just flip through them whenever I want. And then I am also able to use this this card system with sleeves, and I am working on using Scott albums like these, Scott Specialty Series binders like these, to store my entire collection of nice stamps. I would love to have one of these binders for every single country outside of the ones that I have Davo albums for. So these are my nice stamps that I have collected that don't fit within my current focus, and I want to preserve and store. And again, for me, this system is so accessible. I get to flip through it and just enjoy the stamps with all of their information. This is one of my finest stamps. I love this stamp so much. And I can just flip through it. I'm going to do a deeper dive into my system at some point. I just wanted to give you a quick glance at how I process stamps as part of this beginner's guide to collecting stamp series and or episode. And let it be an abject lesson to be skeptical as you hunt for rare stamps, but also, finds are out there. And with that, if you enjoyed today's video, please do like it and subscribe to the channel. It means a great deal to me. Until next time, take care.